Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is Societal Narcissism. This video is sponsored by contribution from Terrence. Before I get to Terrence's video, please go to the description box, click on the Rumble link, as I'm still monetized over there, and it'll help out with the channel. So on to Terrence's video. I have another black pilled video. I know these are always enjoyable for people, so let's get into it. The fate of Americans.
Free agency is something that Americans and humanity at large has fought wars to obtain and wars to avoid. Humanity has a love-hate relationship with personal responsibility, but as we all know, there are some people who hate it more than others. People who never want to take responsibility for their actions and people that expect everyone else to take care of their problems. And then, of course, there are those who think that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we do. What's going to happen is just going to happen. It's fate, it's predestiny, whatever you want to call it, it's unstoppable. The individual doesn't stand a chance against the powerful forces of the universe. And of course, it's easy to imagine who would benefit from the public universally believing this. That no matter what you do, things will just happen the way they're supposed to happen. And there's nothing you can do to stop it, so why try? This is the kind of fatalism that was really popular in the 90s. This kind of nihilistic, why bother, defeatist attitude that still affects a lot of Gen Xers and even some baby boomers today. This sentiment was so popular, it was the core message of the film that won the Oscar for Best Picture at the turn of the century in 1999, in a time before 9/11, and a time before the perpetual wars we've been fighting in the Middle East since. A time before the mass adoption of the most powerful propaganda and surveillance tool of all time, the smartphone. And a time before the Patriot Act that allowed the ruling class to use that technology against its own people. A film appropriately named American Beauty. American Beauty was produced by
Another drunky the fuck clown movie that she couldn't get enough of. Again, a movie where a grown man is pursuing a high school girl, buying drugs from his daughter's friend. His daughter's having sex with the kid who's stealing drugs. And, you know, the thing is, Kevin Spacey is a really good actor. He's a really good actor. And there were parts of this movie that I liked. I mean, when he finally stood up to his boss. And yeah, it's a messed up theme, but like you could almost see, and this is what they do. They layer in this truth, the reality of working these corporate jobs, of being just a cog in a machine, of just these useless, mundane jobs, and the abusive wife who's only so materialistic. And, you know, when he extorted his boss for I think it was a year's salary. It was a year's salary. He's like, well, can you prove that you didn't offer to save my job if I sucked your D? And he ended up, and then the wife's like, he's like, I got a year's free salary. Like, yes, I rule. And the wife's on him. And then when he catches the wife cheating on him with the realtor that she was working with, you know, that's, and he's working at a fast food place, not because he needed the money. He just wanted something to do. And he just wanted a job, like a mundane job where there was no responsibility, but it was a needed job because people want their food. And when he caught her in the drive-thru and said, because I remember I was watching this again, another shore movie down at my parents' house down the shore. I was watching it with my mother and my first wife, who was just as nasty as the wife in this movie. And when he said to her, "I don't have to you don't get to tell me what to do anymore." Like, it was just such, and I'm like, goddamn right. And then I'm like, of course you take his side. And I'm like, she's banging the guy right in the car in front of him. Like, what, have you not been watching what her behavior is? You know? And neither my mother or my wife or even my father none of them called out that this guy is pursuing a high school girl. That, you know, he fully intended until he didn't, until he realized it was the wrong, like, this is a child and I can't do this. But he went pretty damn far before it ever got to that. So let's get into this.
Steven Spielberg's DreamWorks and the Coen Company. It was written by Alan Ball, directed by Sam Mendes, and starred the now infamously alleged gay pedophile rapist, Kevin Spacey. In many ways, American Beauty is a movie about fate, and how leftist boomers dealt with one thing that is in fact inevitable: getting old. At least, that's the surface-level storyline that the movie critics would write about. What they would leave out of their rave reviews is that this is a film about the inevitability of many things, specifically pedophilia, infidelity, homosexuality, divorce, drug use, and even murder. But what else did you expect? After all, it won Best Picture. The film opens with a bit of misdirection, which is appropriate for a film that itself is a piece of misdirection. We see a young woman who is being recorded by someone we presume is her boyfriend. She complains that her father is pathetically hitting on her friends, and that someone should put him out of his misery, to which the man behind the camera seems to agree to do exactly that.
And this had like with him with the video camera, definitely had like this amateur porn vibe to it for sure.
This opening is an extremely complex device with several moving pieces. It accomplishes several things at once, all the while grabbing the attention of the audience and misdirecting them with the skill of a magician. The first most obvious thing that's happening is that the audience is being led to believe that whoever is behind the camera is going to kill her father. Because of the voyeuristic amateur handheld angle and the first-person perspective of the scene, there is something else happening. Films almost never use a first-person perspective because it changes how people relate to the scene. When an actor makes eye contact with the audience, with the camera, it makes people feel uneasy because it shatters the illusion that they are simply a fly on the wall in some alternate universe, but that instead they have now become participants in the...
It's got like a porn vibe to it. That's why, because it's got a porn vibe to it. This is exactly how pornography is shot.
A story. That's if it's executed correctly. It could have the opposite effect if it's done poorly, because the audience will no longer be able to suspend their disbelief and will become painfully aware that they're watching a movie. In the case of American Beauty, I can't think of a better example. This is expertly executed. Watch as the actress goes from completely ignoring the camera, ignoring the audience. You're not even sure that she is aware of the camera when they shot this first part. Then, when the voice from behind the camera, which, by the way, if you're in the theater, that voice would sound like it's coming from the audience. When that voice suggests murdering her father.
Want me to kill him for you?
She slowly and very deliberately brings all of her attention, all of her focus, and puts it directly on the audience through the camera lens with an intensity you can feel on a visceral level. So right at the beginning, in a subtle way, the filmmakers have just simulated a situation in which many of the viewers, especially the younger viewers that are going to be closer to her age, even if it's just in a tiny, tiny subconscious way, they want her father dead. And if that's not enough of a mindfuck, the baby boomers in the audience watching this exact same scene will likely have a different takeaway. A takeaway that's going to be totally lost on the younger viewers. The fear of being old and lame, and the subject of this ridicule, not cool, disgusting to a young woman, and so disgusting that they want to kill you.
See, my boomer parents did not have that reaction. They reacted like the teenager would have. Because my mother hated her mother. She hated it, had issues with her father. This could have been my mother, this scene. It could have been my mother.
We're not even a minute into the film, and some of the oldest parts of the brain, the animal part of the brain that's most susceptible to suggestion, has been lit up like a Christmas tree. And before your brain can process any of it, we go to black. We now shift to an aerial shot of Anytown, USA, and listen to the narration of Kevin Spacey's character, Lester Burnham, the man whose murder was just being discussed. And likely to the surprise of many in the audience, right after introducing himself, he says something that main characters in movies almost never say.
I'm 42 years old. In less than a year, I'll be dead.
By telling the audience how the story must inevitably end before it even begins, it changes how they're going to perceive the rest of the film. Lester's fate has already been written. We know that no matter what he does, no matter what decisions he makes, he is going to die. The future is already written for Lester, and he has no control over his destiny. We then go through a
See, I took that a bit differently from the overhead shot. This is his spirit retelling the story. That's kind of more how I took that.
Montage of life that's eerily similar to many of the films of that era. The late 90s was the decade after the booming Wall Street 80s, and the dot-com bubble was just about...
Right. His job definitely had like an Office Space vibe to it, without question. Like, same thing, cubicles, mundane work for no reason, justifying your job with stupid reports. Like, that's something real. I mean, that's something that's what the workplace became. And by like the 2000s and 2010s, it had just become completely unbearable. And that's that's the truth they stick in to make you not hate the father, Lester. Is that his name, Lester?
Out to burst. Companies seemed hell-bent on using technology, cubicles, and efficiency experts to squeeze every last drop of productivity out of the American worker. A movie that does an excellent job of covering this phenomenon is Office Space, which I highly recommend if you haven't seen it. But this was a reality that was reflected in several movies, including Fight Club and even The Matrix, because the late 90s was a time of corporate oligarchs micromanaging their wage slaves to a degree never before seen in history. And it was taking its toll on the sanity of the American worker.
And I'll tell you this, even in security, when I was with Macy's, for special investigations, we had central investigations that did nothing but, they worked out of Herald Square, and they did nothing but reports, like credit reports, cash reports, return reports, any type of, they were called exemption reports. And we had about, 25, 30 different exemption reports, void reports, to find employees stealing. And what the central investigators would do, they would sit there in Herald Square on the, what were they on? I think they were on the 11th floor, on the 10th or the 11th floor, okay, in cubicle just like this, and do nothing but run these reports, run these investigations. They didn't really go out into the field or anything. And those jobs had such high turnover rate because they'd go out of their minds. They would all just go out of their minds or just beg, put me back in a brand store, make me a regional investigator, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. So like this was the corporate culture then. So many people watching this can relate to it, just like they related to Office Space.
As they said in Office Space,
human beings were not meant to sit in little cubicles staring at computer screens all day.
Under fluorescent lights and, TPS reports or whatever your company's reports were called.
Useless forms and listening to 8 different bosses drone on about mission statements.
So Lester is an unwilling participant in this system. On top of that, his wife is cold and dissatisfied with him. She's a feminist, and her feminism has successfully fooled her into aspiring to be a good little taxpayer, even if that means being a terrible mother. Lester lives next door to a gay couple who, and this probably has nothing at all to do with the writer being gay, I'm sure, are perfect in every way and are the only positive role models in the entire movie.
Right. The entire neighborhood is messed up except the two gay guys. The kid filming who moves in on the other side of the girl's father's this ex-Marine who at the end of the movie, who hates gays. He sees these two running with his son. Sees it like, what is this, a pride march? Is obviously beating the wife, is abusive to the son, the whole rigmarole, and it ends with him thinking that Lester and his son are having a gay affair, and he gets so turned on about it, he tries to kill Lester, and he's the one who actually kills Lester in the end. because he makes a move on Lester, and Lester's like, I'm not gay. You got the wrong idea. I'm not gay. And he can't handle it, so he blows his brains out. And then the daughter and the boyfriend find him, and Lester's there dead with his head blown off. Okay, but he's got a big smile on his face. Meanwhile, the wife comes in with a gun, ready to kill him as well, and sees he's already dead, and now she's crying because she thinks she's going to get blamed for it.
The film does what Hollywood movies have been doing for decades. It shamelessly attempts to humiliate straight white men and show them as inferior to the women in their lives. And obviously the gay people too, so no surprises there. We'll go ahead and move on. After we're taken through a slice of the unhappy family's miserable life, Lester, the aging boomer, goes to a high school basketball game to see his cheerleader daughter. It's not long before he begins fantasizing about one of his daughter's friends. He becomes infatuated with her and behaves like, well, kind of like a straight Kevin Spacey would have acted in that situation. Something tells me he didn't have to research this role too thoroughly. His daughter's friend is receptive and flirtatious, and here is where I want to interject something. I was very young when this movie first came out, and I believe I saw it at a friend's house right after it went out on video. It might have even been on VHS. I thought this actress, Mina Savari, I'm not sure if I said that right, was the hottest girl in the world, or close to it. And honestly, I just watched the movie because I was hoping she'd be topless in this film. Think of how many subconscious messages get planted into the minds of young people who just want to see an actress naked or watch dinosaurs fight or something like that. There is so much of this movie and many others that I watched when I was younger, I'm sure. And it just went right into my brain, and I didn't even realize the subversive programming that was going on. It's especially unnerving thinking about this, knowing that I wasn't exactly some mindless NPC, like even back then. I was just young and stupid. So the power that these people have in shaping our culture and politics, just because they have access to someone that everyone wants to see naked, or they have the budget to make, realistic sort of dinosaurs fighting or something like that, the power that gives them in shaping our culture and politics cannot be overstated. At any rate, back to the story. So we now actually meet the man that was behind the camera in the movie intro. The audience is brought back into the first-person perspective as we watch an awkwardly long shot of Lester's daughter, Jane, the girl from the intro to the movie, walking up the path to the front of her house. And once again, she makes eye contact with the audience. Now, this time the audience is spared playing the part of the cameraman when her neighbor, Ricky Fitz, formally becomes part of the story by coming out of the shadows. Jane seems to dislike him immediately for being creepy, but, of course, secretly enjoys the attention. Speaking of being creepy, the next morning, Lester, her father, sneaks into his daughter's room while she is taking a shower and calls up her hot friend, only to hang up on her like a 12-year-old. And it really is, he's reverting back into a juvenile. The so-called midlife crisis, which seemed to be this new phenomenon that happened as baby boomers began to get old. I really don't think this so-called midlife crisis really affected other generations quite as thoroughly. It's not.
No, and he did after he left his job, he sold his Camry and bought a Firebird. Like he bought like a 70s Firebird because it was his dream car. He's like, I've always wanted it. Now I have it. And you can kind of understand that too, to a certain extent.
Not entirely inaccurate. I had friends with creepy baby boomer parents that would show up, especially after a divorce, to our parties, and they would hit on, young girls. It was like one day they woke up and realized they were adults, and in an act of what they would characterize as defiance, but I would characterize as denial, they would just try to live as if the last 20 years hadn't happened. I don't think this film was promoting this behavior by accurately depicting it, but I do think it was promoting this behavior by actively excusing it. Right. The complete meltdown that both Lester and his wife end up having comes with a litany of excuses. We now meet Ricky Fitz's family. Ricky Fitz is the weirdo neighbor with the camera next door. His father is Hollywood's stereotype of a conservative, militant, controlling, angry, homophobic psychopath. Right. His mother acts as if she's either heavily medicated to deal with the stress of being married to such a tyrant or is suffering from some extreme case of PTSD unique to wives of fascists. The perfect gay couple welcomes them to the neighborhood with a basket of some sort, and Mr. Fitz is immediately uncomfortable about having gay neighbors. He also seems weirdly preoccupied with his son becoming gay, which has always been this leftist trope. They would often accuse those who opposed normalizing homosexuality as being secretly homosexual themselves. It's always been projection with the left, every single time. And as we all know, this behavior is definitely not limited to Hollywood screenwriters. Next, Ricky sees Janie at school and impresses her with his confidence. He might be a complete weirdo psycho that films her from the shadows next door, but he has confidence, and chicks dig confidence. Next, Ricky sees Jane's father at some networking event that his wife has dragged him to. Lester reverts even further into a juvenile, sneaks behind the building with Ricky and smokes some pot, while his wife, driven by hypergamy, is shamelessly hitting on a colleague of hers. Lester's midlife crisis really goes into high gear, and he begins to frequently fantasize about his daughter's hot friend. And when his wife catches him masturbating, they have a fight. It's odd to me, but then again...
Yeah, he was doing it right in the bed right next door. He didn't care.
Again, maybe not that odd, that the writers would choose Lester's lust for an underage girl as the catalyst for lack of a better term, for him growing a pair and standing up to his wife and being a real man. As if his desire for this underage girl and his behavior, this reverting back into a juvenile, is what's making him a real man. It's literally an inversion of the truth. He's acting like a child and justifying his behavior and ignoring the last 20 years of his life because they didn't turn out exactly as he had hoped. And he will now, as many of my friends' parents did in real life, by the way, try to undo 2 decades of perceived failure by pretending they just didn't happen. Lester even goes so far as quitting his job and getting a job at a fast food joint, the job that he had as a teenager, while his success-driven wife is having kind of an opposite meltdown and begins this hypergamous affair with the successful colleague from the party. Now, while all this is going on, Jane seems to be not even an afterthought, completely ignored by both of her parents.
And when he threw that, because that was another scene where the wife was just berating him, and he threw the dish, and that was another scene where I kind of was like, at the time, because here I have this. I don't even think I was married to her at the time. I think it was a year before I think we saw this in like 98. I don't even think we were married at the time. But even then, before that, this is how her behavior was, my ex.
Because selfishly focusing on themselves is so vital to their existence, they must explore these whims they are having, even if it means ignoring their responsibility as parents completely. Something else, by the way, I saw many of my friends' parents do in real life. The funny thing is, the whole time, the filmmakers are excusing this reprehensible behavior. They attack the conservative family with the stay-at-home mom. I mean, sure, she's there physically, but she's so emotionally and maybe even physically abused by the evil husband that she may as well not be. And the father isn't just a violent, abusive homophobe, but wait for it, he's a literal Nazi.
Yeah, yep. Oh, that's right. The Nazi plates. The Nazi plates. That's right.
The left has been calling everyone to the right of Karl Marx a Nazi for as long as I've been alive. And in the 90s, they must have been convinced that we all had secret Nazi rooms, which, if you're familiar with my channel, is something we've seen in other movies. One of the more famous scenes of this movie is when Ricky and Jane are watching a video that Ricky shot of a plastic bag blowing around in the wind. It is here that the filmmakers reinforce, yet again, the idea that we are all just products of circumstance. It's
like the feather in Forrest Gump. Same thing. Same, except they used the bag this time.
Just swept up by powerful forces around us. There is nothing we can really do. Lester has no control over his lust for underage girls, and his midlife crisis was just an inevitable part of his story. His wife was destined to feel unfulfilled until she experienced the embrace of this other successful man who understood her ambition. Ricky and Jane and the rest of them are all just plastic bags caught in the wind without direction or power over their own fate. And that is exactly how the last day of Lester's life plays out. Once again, with narration, the audience is told this is the last day of Lester's life. It's already written in stone. There's no surprises. Nothing Lester can do can get him out of dying. And on this day, there's a string of fateful events setting off chain reactions, including Lester's wife accidentally going through the drive-thru where Lester now has a job. Something else that implies that there's fate and coincidence and just a larger force at work, and there's really nothing we can do to stop it. Now, I'm going to skip over some of the minutiae and some of the minor subplots to move things along, but Lester's bad day drives him to buy marijuana from the guy having sex with his daughter. And Ricky's dad, because he's a Nazi lunatic, mistakenly thinks that his son is giving Lester a blowjob. And being the homophobic psychopath that he is, he snaps and beats the shit out of his son, Ricky. Meanwhile, Lester's wife, who bought a gun after she first cheated on Lester and went to a gun range and, of course, has been murderously mad with power ever since because, again, that's what happens when you get a gun. That's the left projecting again, by the way. When they get a gun, that is how they feel. She's now psyching herself up with motivational speaker tapes to get up the nerve to kill Lester. Meanwhile, Ricky convinces Jane to run away with him. Jane's hot friend objects, and they get in a fight, and he calls her a basic bitch. Now, that's when the most inexplicable scene in the entire movie happens. Now, when I first saw this movie back in 2000 or whenever it was that I actually saw it, it seemed so out of place and unbelievable that I thought they just didn't know how to end the movie.
Right.
So they just wrote that in. But that
it
was
really was. It was out of left field. This came out of left field.
Understood the psychology of the left. Ricky's dad shows up to Lester's garage unannounced and crying. And Lester, who has no idea at all that there's been a fight or anything, doesn't have any idea anything's going on at all, just tries to comfort him. And then seemingly out of nowhere, Ricky's dad, the Nazi homophobic psychopath, kisses Lester. He can no longer hold back his burning homosexual desires that make him such an asshole, and in a moment of weakness, it slips out. See, this is how the left thinks. You see it over and over and over again. All the men that say that they're feminists on the left end up being the biggest abusers. That is how the left operates. They overcompensate to hide whatever it is that they feel guilty about, and they project this behavior onto other people. They assume that that's how other people think too. Because fundamentally, you got to remember, leftists believe that everyone's basically the same. So if there's something true about the way your brain works, then clearly that's the way everyone else's brain works too. It's kind of like honest people who are really gullible, who are really easy to fool, because they just assume, they're honest, and they just assume everyone else is as honest as they are. But
But here's the truth on this. The guy on the down low, the closeted gay man, hates women. And they would be the one to be the abuser.
Projection is really fundamentally a huge part of leftist psychology. And the sooner you figure that out, the quicker you'll understand the leftist mind. They think that the only reason this guy would oppose homosexual lifestyles is if he was overcompensating for his own latent homosexuality. It wasn't just expressed in this film, by the way, either. This was a common thing to accuse people who were uncomfortable around gay people of being secretly gay themselves. You will see this archetype in several movies and TV shows in this era. When they were really pushing to normalize homosexuality, that was their go-to stereotype of someone who didn't want to normalize homosexuality. It was always because they were secretly gay themselves. So at any rate, now Lester is confused, but he doesn't freak out. He lets the secretly gay Nazi down easy, and disappointed, the secretly gay Nazi, dejected, wanders back off into the rain. Somehow this doesn't bother Lester that much. He goes inside and he finds the object of his underage desires alone in the dark. He quickly moves in and seduces her. He's about to have sex with her when she mentions that she's a virgin. Apparently, this is what snaps Lester out of his midlife crisis. He has a rare moment of self-reflection. He becomes suddenly aware of the vast difference in age and in meaning that this sexual encounter will have, and he changes his mind. He has an epiphany. He seems to realize how lucky he was this entire time to have a wife and a family. For the first time in the movie, he actually seems happy. But then, because we're all just plastic bags flying around in the wind, and what we think and do makes no difference at all, Lester as they told you in the beginning of the film, is shot in the back of the head and dies. Not shot by his wife, mind you, who was driving home to do him in, but of course, by the secretly gay, homophobic Nazi, because, well, you know, Nazis, hello? They just do that shit. And that's pretty much the end. I mean, the audience is treated to some vignettes of how the people in Lester's life react to his death, and there is a little bit of narration from Lester himself, who says he's not angry about being killed, that you should just stop trying to obtain perfection or beauty, and just relax and let life happen to you, because in the end, it doesn't matter what you do anyway. And that is when we get the real meaning of the title. The American Beauty isn't Lester's underage sex fantasy. It's the American dream. It's different things for different people in the film and in life. And if the people in the film and in life truly knew just how trivial they were, how insignificant they were, they would find just as much enjoyment in watching a plastic bag float around in the wind as they would trying to do something meaningful and important with their lives. The moral of this story is clear. Don't try. Don't try to do anything that's hard. There is beauty in just going with the flow, with mediocrity. And what you call beauty and your ambition and your dreams, those are just fool's errands. Unless, of course, you're the gay couple.
He is a tax attorney. And he's an anesthesiologist.
Then, by all means, anything is possible. But no, seriously, stop trying. Just check out of life. Work at a burger joint. And in the end, it doesn't really matter, because the individual doesn't stand a chance against the forces of the universe. We all die anyway. So why try?
See, I disagree there. The real meaning was, if he just, there wasn't anything, there was something he could have done to not have died that day. He could have accepted the Nazi father's homosexuality and went along with it. Because if he had done that, he'd still be alive. Now, whether or not the wife would actually had the nerve to go through with it, or maybe they're saying, well, she was going to kill him anyway. So either it was going to be him or her. But I question whether or not she was actually going to be able to murder him. Because what would be the motivation at that point? She wants to be with this other guy. She's worried about what her boss, she's worried about her career. So why kill him over it? That doesn't make sense. Why would you kill him over it? Because he caught you cheating. Well, you wanted to be with this guy. You can't stand him. You're completely repulsed by him because he caught you cheating. Now you're going to end his life. That doesn't even make any sense. There was something he could have done to avoid it. Because I promise you, if he was there with the Nazi guy, she wouldn't have killed. She wouldn't have pulled the trigger if somebody else was there. There was something he could have done. He could have been a good person and accepted homosexuality.
For Black-pilled,
That's the end there anyway. That's what he could have done. That's the real, I think that's the real message. If he accepted homosexuality, because now he rejected it, so now it wasn't him chasing the underage girl around that made him that made him deserve to die. No. It was rejecting homosexuality is why he died in this movie. That's the real message here. So, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, Terrence, for the contribution and the clip. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you want to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do at either the Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, and email links in the description box below. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. Also, be sure to subscribe to both my channels on Rumble. If you haven't watched the video over there, please do. Even a click helps. Follow me on TikTok, X, and Telegram as well. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Societal Narcissism. Take care, everyone.